Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the Clear Cooperation class today with Jeff. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jeff here to go ahead and get us started. Thank you, Jeff from CRMLS. Thank you very much for being here today.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing? We are here to talk about the Clear Cooperation Policy. You guys may be familiar with it, some of you. If not, let me give you the quick rundown on what this is. So you guys may be familiar with the concept of a pocket listing or an off MLS listing or an office exclusive. They all generally refer to the same thing. What this process is all about is a broker who is part of an MLS elects at the instruction of their seller to not enter the listing into the MLS and try to sell it off MLS. So currently and in the past that's been allowed. You can file an exclusion form and go your way and try to sell the property. Currently, you can also, in the process of doing that, market it to the public freely. What this has created is a little bit of a controversy because the agreement that you make when you join an MLS as a broker is you say to all the other brokers, look, I'm going to put all my listings in the MLS so you can see them and sell them. And then I will also get to see and sell all your listings, right? So that's the general agreement. That's called cooperation. But when a broker has a regular business process or even a limited business process of not putting their listings in the MLS, while at the same time having access to everyone else's, what that broker could be said to be doing is saying, I want to see and sell all your inventory, but you don't get to see and sell all of mine. So that is an issue. It's can be considered non-cooperation, okay? Daniel says bandwidth issues right now. I'm going to keep going unless you tell me otherwise, Daniel. So what NAR has done is decided to take a closer look at this and to take some action on it. And last year, at the beginning of the year, the issue came up before the Emerging Issues in Technology panel. They took this under consideration and drafted a draft policy and pushed it on to the NAR MLS Policy Committee, who then made some tweaks to it, introduced it at the committee meeting last fall and voted to approve it and send it to the board of directors. And then the NAR board of directors decided to approve it. 92% of the directors voted in favor of the policy. So that's pretty much the history. At that point, the board of directors says, okay, all you association owned or affiliated MLSs now need to take this and get it out to your users by May 1st of 2020. So now that's where we are. We as an MLS had to take this all under consideration and come up with some rules and some changes that would make this work for you guys. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. It looks like you might be sharing yours, Daniel, but I'm going to share my slideshow now. So hopefully you guys can see that. It says Clear Cooperation Policy Rules. I'm going to try to open my chat so I can make sure I can see you guys. Okay. So what does this look like? What did NAR actually come up with? Well, here's the policy. This is it word for word. And it says this: within 1 business day of marketing a property to the public, the listing broker must submit the listing to the MLS for cooperation with other MLS participants. Public marketing includes, but it is not limited to, flyers displayed in windows, yard signs, digital marketing on public-facing websites, brokerage website displays, including IDX and VAL, digital communications marketing, email blast, multi-brokerage listing sharing networks, and applications available to the general public. So that's the policy. Note that at the bottom of the slide, it does specify that this rule, the policy underlying it, only applies to residential land, and 1 to 4 unit properties. So if you're wondering if it applies to leases, commercial properties, multi-unit, mixed use, it does not. Okay, so why did they limit that to that type of properties? I think because this is generally where the issue and the controversy was arising most. So looking at that, you may know, or you may discern quickly, that the main change here is that if you have an off MLS listing and you market it to the public, that will trigger the rule, and you have to then put that listing in the MLS. Right now, that's not how it works, right? So if you exclude your listing from the MLS, you can go out and you can market it however you want, right? But now that public marketing is what triggers the rule. So the concept here is to get more of these off MLS listings back in the MLS, unless they are truly office exclusives, which we're going to talk about. So this policy had to be taken by us and turned into a rule. This is what the rule looks like. So under the CRMLS matrix rule set, it's designated 7.9. If the Paragon rule set, it would be 7.5, but it looks the same. So here's what CRMLS came up with. You can see that the first sentence is exactly the same as the NAR policy. Same concept: within 1 business day of public marketing, you have to put in the MLS. We enhanced the description of marketing a little bit more because that's very important to understand, right? What is actually marketing to the public? We've added a couple of items. We did add verbal communication. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. We also added conducting an open house. I think that that would be obviously marketing. Barbara, I see your question. I think we're going to do questions midway. I'll stop and take all those and try to address them all. I want to point out the last sentence and why it's important. So if you note in the rule that what triggers the rule is marketing to the public. Well, NAR did not define who is the public, and that's pretty important. So if there's an audience of people that if you market to will trigger the rule, you pretty much need to know who those people are. So at CRMLS, we've come up with a line to be drawn around a group of people who would not be considered the public. And it is set forth in the last sentence. Any individual or entity that has signed within the previous year a disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship form, or the AD form, in compliance with the California Civil Code, that identifies the listing broker shall not be considered a member of the public under this rule. So again, if you have someone who has an AD form signed with your broker in the last year, that person is not the public, okay? That would be considered your customer. And the marketing rule would not be triggered if you spoke to those people about a listing or a property that's not in the MLS. All right, so let's talk about the real big key concepts, right? So I started to introduce who is the public. Again, there is a line drawn or a circle drawn around those people who have an AD form signed with your broker in the last year. Who else is not the public? Well, the other agents in your office. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean the other agents who are also under the same broker number as you, under the same broker license. I don't mean that if you're at KW, every other KW agent, okay? It's not franchise-wide. It's not corporation-wide. It is specifically limited to those agents who are under the same broker license as you. If you were to look on the DRE website, we've got 2 lines, right? The other agents in your office, as I just defined, and the customers who have that AD form signed with your broker in the last year. That is not the public. Anybody else is. Agents at other offices, okay? People on your email blast list that you haven't done business with in who knows how long, right? It doesn't include someone who you did a deal with 2 years ago, right? It's got to be qualified by the AD form or an agent under the same broker license number. Hopefully that makes sense. What is marketing? All right, so you saw the NAR list, you saw our list. Guys, marketing is whatever you would reasonably expect it to be, right? It's anything, any effort that you're making, any communication or publication by which you're trying to generate interest in a property that you're going to sell. Putting it on Zillow, Realtor.com, any of the other syndication sites, putting it on your own website, pushing it out there. Your social media, obviously, that's going to the public. Going to a big broker meeting or a big meeting somewhere where the audience is not made up of agents only in your office, right? That's the public. Putting up signs, having an open house, making flyers, sending out an email blast, having a personal meeting with someone, right? Or let's say it's just a local coffee group that you get together with potential customers or other brokers or agents, and you're talking about all these upcoming properties. You can clearly market without having to put something in writing. So marketing is what you would see, and if you want the other details, you can refer back to the rule. Well, how does this change anything for you, right? What does it do for your business process? Well, I want to talk about what's not going to change, all right? And what's not going to change is the mandatory submission process. So you guys know full well that for about 40 years, there's been a rule that within a certain time frame of getting your listing agreement signed and effective, you have to make a decision. You either have to put it in the MLS as active or file an exclusion form, right? And under our current rule set, it's 2 business days. So within 2 business days of the effective date of the listing agreement, you must either exclude or put the property in as active. That rule's not going away, but we do have some new options for you on how to satisfy that rule. So there's a clock that starts when your listing agreement becomes effective, 2 business days, right? You have to be mindful of that clock. It'll always be there. There's a second clock that is now in play, and that's the marketing rule. So the new process will look like this. The first step is always going to be the same. You get a listing agreement and it's effective, and now you have to make a decision. Again, you have 2 business days to make that call, but you need to be aware that if you market to the public, you've triggered another clock. Right, so what would this look like in reality? So let's say you get the first signature on your listing agreement, but you're waiting on the second, and for some reason it's delayed. But in the meantime, your sign company comes out and puts up your sign, or your web team pushes out a social media campaign for that property. Well, now it's not the 2 business day clock you have to worry about because your listing agreement is not even effective. It's the 1 business day clock because you've marketed it to the public. So these 2 things run concurrently, right? The 2 business day clock will always start. The 1 business day clock might start if you market to the public. So we've got some options for you guys on how to make that choice as set forth in box 2A. Some of these are exciting new developments. In the past, you could only choose to exclude or go active. We still have active. We're replacing excluding with registered. I'm going to talk about that in detail. And we're adding a coming soon status. Okay, so that should be exciting for you guys. We'll talk about that in detail. Starting on the right for active, it's the same as it's always been, right? So if you get your listing agreement signed and your plan is just to go active, nothing has changed for you. If you don't use exclusion forms and you don't use preparatory periods and pre-marketing and all that stuff, and you're just ready to go with your listing, you're going to go active and life is going to go on as normal, right? The characteristics of an active listing are that you can fully market it. You can do whatever you want with that listing of yours. Tell anybody you want about it in any way. It's fully displayed in the MLS, searchable, identifiable. It's in there for commission, which is totally obvious because it has to have some compensation offered. It is for sale. DOM is counting. DOM stands for days on market. So because you're able to market it completely, clearly DOM is going to start ticking. It is fully distributed through the MLS. That means it goes out to syndication. If your broker is elected to send their listings out, go to Zillow, Realtor.com, Homes.com. It also goes out to IDX feeds. We have 22,000 agent and broker websites that receive IDX feeds. Your active listing is in those feeds. And obviously showings are allowed. It's wide open. It's ready to go. Right, so nothing changing about active. Moving to the left, coming soon. Okay, so before I talk about that, let's reflect on the rationale that's always offered for needing a coming soon status. And that's this. I have a listing. It's not completely ready to be pushed out into the market 100%. We've got some repairs to make. We've got a seller who's out of town. We need to move this, relocate this tenant. I can't get my sign guy. I can't get my photographer. I've got staging to do. All of these things that you still may need to finish. But at the same time, your seller is very interested in moving quickly, right? They want to get it out there and see what kind of response they're getting to the price and to the property itself. So by all that rationale, we've been asked, and it's been offered out there in some other MLSs for a period of time where you can have it in the MLS, but not be hit with days on market, right? Under the idea that, well, I'm not 100% marketing it, so can't I just have some time to finish getting it ready, but at the same time, figure out what the response is. So that's what's happening, right? So coming soon is very similar to active in some respects. Marketing is allowed. So when you have a coming soon listing, you can put out a sign. You can put it on your website. You can put it out there through your social media. You can market it just like an active listing. It is displayed in the MLS. There's nothing hidden about coming soon. There's no special issues with, oh, only certain people can see it. Everybody who is an MLS user can see your coming soon listings. It'll show up in saved searches. It'll be there. It's not hidden in any way. Commission is offered because it's for sale, right? It's in the MLS for cooperation. You've got compensation offered in there. That means if you get an offer while in coming soon, you can accept it. Your seller can take it, and then you guys will proceed with the compensation based upon the listing agreement and the contract. Here's where it starts to change. I already pointed out that no DOM is going to count during this time because the marketing that is allowed is somewhat limited, all right? It has to be different from active in order to justify this whole I need some time to get it ready thing. First thing is it's limited in its distribution. It doesn't go out to syndication. It doesn't go out to Zillow or Realtor.com or Homes.com. It doesn't go out to IDX sites. So the only place that the MLS has this listing is in the MLS. Unlike an active listing, which is shot far and wide, coming soon stays within the context of the MLS. So that's some limitations on the marketing. The other major limitation is no showings are allowed. Why? Well, the rationale is this property is not 100% ready, right? I want to market it and get it out there. But if it's truly the case that you still need some time to get it ready, then no showings can't be allowed. And that is the case here. By the listing broker or anyone else, right? It's not ready. It's not active. It's not here. It's coming soon. And the other major difference is this is a 21-day time limit for coming soon, because that is a reasonable amount of time to finish up whatever those last details are in getting your property ready. Most other MLSs are at the 21 to 14-day limited time frame. There's a few out there with 30, but it can't be much longer than that because it's not coming way down the road. It's coming soon, and 21 days seems reasonable to say that is soon. So those are the characteristics of coming soon. Some common questions I get are, what happens at the end of the 21 days? Can I extend that? The answer is no. At the end of the 21 days, the system will automatically push that listing into active. You can go from active into another status if you want. What does it mean that you can accept an offer? I get this question a lot. How do you accept an offer if there's no showings? Well, you guys know that an offer can be made and accepted subject to inspection. So I get the claim that's like, well, if I see something go straight from coming soon to pending, then I know that listing broker was showing that property. That's not necessarily the case. Okay, a buyer may be so interested in a property and a seller may be so interested in selling this property that they agree in a contract to go into contract subject to inspection. What that means is you can go from coming soon to pending. You can go from coming soon to active under contract. You can also go from coming soon to hold, right? So if you need a little bit more time, if you have the right instructions from your seller, you could go to hold and DOM will still not accrue. So there's a lot of options going into coming soon, and there's a lot of options going out of coming soon. But the key concept is you are going to get that 21-day period where no DOM is going to accrue so that you can address the finishing touches on your listing. So I'm going to pause here and take some questions. I'm going to expand my chat. Daniel, did you want to present the questions to me?
Sure, yeah. So Barbara Haran was asking a question, what about coming soon signs on the front lawns? That's marketing to the public, right?
Yes, but you can mark it while you're in coming soon. So that's the key thing. It's not an office exclusive. It's not off MLS. It's in the MLS. It's ready for sale and you can market it. So yes, if you want to put a sign on and you're coming soon, by all means do so.
Okay. And then the next question. So a for sale sign on a commercial property that is not listed or has been sold already in the previous months is acceptable?
Well, commercial properties, let me see if I can refine that question a little bit. So a for sale sign on commercial property that is not listed. So commercial properties, as I introduced at the beginning, are not covered by the Clear Cooperation rules. So
okay.
Any kind of trigger based upon that on a commercial property is not relevant. Commercial property you can operate as you are now and have in the past.
Perfect. And then Virginia was wondering if you could confirm that this is 21 calendar days, not business days.
Correct, calendar days.
Very good. And then I think there was one other one. Let's see here.
Okay, I see Paul says virtual showings. Does that count as showings? And yes, it does. Right. So this is an interesting discussion because you guys already have access to put a field in for a virtual tour. Right? You realize that you make a video. It's not branded. You're basically showing a slideshow or something. You can already put that in the MLS. That's a static. It's very similar to just putting the pictures in, right? Which is fair. But a virtual showing or a virtual open house is a specific appointment given to a specific potential customer or customers, right? So if I have a virtual showing, I make an appointment and the listing broker walks me through the house vis-a-vis a camera or something along those lines. Same thing with an open house. For 3 hours on a Saturday, someone can log into a special link and interact with the listing broker or agent while that person is while they're in the house sort of touring around. So a showing is a showing, guys, whether it's virtual or not. If we were to allow virtual showings to not count in this rule, the rule would be completely undermined. Let's see, John Bolton. I recognize your name, John. I think we talked a little bit about this builders issue. We're still refining these rules, and that's a long question. So email me, and we'll continue our conversation. Jeff@crmls.org. Sorry to do that to you, but I've got a lot of other questions coming in. Barbara says, can you repeat what you said about extending the 21 days coming soon? Sorry, I cut out. I'm sorry too. You cannot extend the 21 days. Okay, that's a hard cap. You don't have to do anything. The system will automatically take that listing and push it into active at the end of the 21 days. You can leave the 21-day period early if you want. You can, if on day 14, a buyer comes to you and says, I have this amazing offer, and your seller says, that is a good offer. The buyer says, I really want to see it. I need to have a showing. Fine. Just go to active and show the property and go from there. And if you do that, you can't go back to coming soon. So there's no going out of coming soon and going back, right? Because that's illogical. If it goes to active, it's not coming soon, it's here, right? You can't go back in time and say, well, now it was here, now it's coming again. That's not how it works. Let's see. Donna, I just did answer the question. I do not consider virtual tours the same as a virtual showing. Virtual tours is very, very similar to the photographs. It's not branded. It's literally like a slideshow or a short video. A virtual showing is a specific appointment where the listing agent or broker is engaged with a potential client, just like a showing. Let's see. Wendy says, is there anything you need to see from listing paperwork for the coming soon? We're creating a disclosure and an advisory that you would want to have for signed by your sellers, advising of what coming soon means and some of the limitations and differences between an active status. So definitely you would want to have that. That'll be introduced very quickly after everything goes live, or you could provide your own. But I would certainly say it's best practice to inform your sellers of what coming soon means and why it's different. What else you got there, Daniel?
Guy was wondering, do you have a legal contract to list before any showing of a home under registered waiver?
I'm going to get to registered in a second, Guy, and I'll break all that down for you. The short answer is maybe, probably. We'll talk about that.
And then Barbara was wondering, to extend on that coming soon status, is it okay to start pitching these properties on marketing meetings in
Yes.
coming soon status?
Yeah, you can market a coming soon.
There we go.
You just can't show it or have an open house. Everything else is fine. Just because we're not putting it out there for you on Zillow and we're not sending it out to the IDX sites doesn't mean you can't, right? So we're not distributing it. It's only going to be in the MLS in terms of what we control, but it's your listing. You can do with it as you want in terms of marketing it without showing it or doing open houses, okay, for 21 days. Key concept.
Perfect. And continuing on that thought, Kathy was wondering, can you start scheduling appointments within those 21 days to start showing properties or showing the property at day 22?
Of course, because day 22, it's going to go to active. And at that point, it takes on all the characteristics of an active listing, which is do whatever you want with it, okay? So yeah, I would say taking showing appointments for day 22 is great.
Perfect. And then Wendy was wondering about that form that you mentioned earlier. Is that going to be a CAR form or a CRMLS?
I don't know. I don't know if CAR has a plan to create the same advisory or a similar advisor. I would think they do. They're pretty hip to that. Our form will be available for you in the Zip Forms library. So next best thing to having a CAR form is having it in Zip Forms. Again, we've gotten it approved and it's going to publication real shortly, maybe within a week.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. I think that finishes up the questions.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope our technical difficulties are limited at this point. Let's move on to registered. The most important thing you need to understand about registered is it's not some whole new monster, some different animal. It is simply a replacement for the current exclusion form process. Please just think about it that way. Currently, if you get a listing agreement and it's effective, but your seller's not ready to go in the MLS, or they don't want to put it in the MLS at all, you simply have an exclusion instruction signed and you send it into the MLS. That's how it works. It's been that way for a long time. You don't have to do that anymore with respect to sending it to us. If your seller gives you those instructions and they sign it and give it to you, you don't have to send that to us. All you have to do is register the listing. So no more sending a form. You just go into your ad edit and fill out 5 fields, okay? Address, list contract date, price, expiration date, and anticipated marketing start date. It's really, really similar to the information you would have in your exclusion form, okay? It's really straightforward. No sending an exclusion form, although you need one. Just go in and register it, and you will have satisfied the mandatory submission rule. Okay, so in the past you would exclude it, now you just register it. Same thing, different concept. What are the characteristics of registered? The same characteristics of an excluded listing in most ways. No marketing is allowed, and this bears on the Clear Cooperation rule. It's not displayed in the MLS, just like if you excluded a property, it wouldn't show up in the MLS, right? Obviously. No commission is offered. And when I say that, I mean no commission is offered in the MLS, right? If you want to sell the property off MLS, your commission issues are dealt with in your residential listing agreement. No DOM. Why? Because it's not in the MLS. So we're not counting any of this stuff. It's not going anywhere. It's not distributed. Just like if you excluded a property. We aren't sending excluded properties out to Zillow. Same thing here. No one can see it. The only person who is aware, or people who are aware of a registered listing, are the broker and the agent and the MLS staff. Just like an excluded property that used to just sit in a file. Registered properties sit behind the wall where no one can see them. If you are the listing broker, you can edit it. Okay, and that doesn't affect the property history or the price history. It's basically just sitting there until your seller decides what exactly they want to do. So this can be very handy, right? So if you have a property that needs major rehabilitation, 21 days and coming soon is not going to be enough. But you still have to do your mandatory submission rule, right? You don't want to wait to get your listing agreement signed. You want to get in contract. So you get the listing agreement, it's effective. Your contractor says it can take me 60 days. Just put it in as registered, put your expected marketing start date at 60 days. If things change, you can change that marketing start date. If it takes longer, you can move it out. The system is not going to do anything with a registered listing. It's not going to push it out to any other status. It's not going to trigger anything. You may get pop-ups that say, hey, is your expected marketing date still this? But there's no consequence if you don't change it. Really, guys, it's just like an excluded listing. Now, what you need to understand is that this is the route you would go if you really are going to try and do an off MLS sale. So even though clear cooperation rules are now what's happening, you can still do an off MLS sale, but you can't market it to the public, right? So that's why point 1 says no marketing is allowed. If you've excluded a property and registered it, and then you go out and publicly market it, now you've triggered the 1 business day rule and you've got to get it into coming soon or active. If you stay within the lines of not marketing it to the public, right? You're only communicating about it to those clients you have an AD form signed with, or the other agents under your same broker license. You're not marketing it to the public. You can try and sell it within the scope of those limitations, which means, and I'll point out the last item on that list, is that you can show it only to those people who have the AD form signed. So you can still go the off MLS route. You just can't market it to the public. That's as clear as I can make it. Let me pause here and take some questions on registered.
All right, so Wendy was asking, so the registered waiver status, simply, not even a status, but no marketing signs at all at the front of the property, right?
Correct. No public marketing while in registered, or you will have triggered the 1 business day clock to put it in the MLS. See, this is, again, this is the main difference. This is the change, the big change. If you exclude a property now, you could market to the public. You could put out a sign. It's just so long as you filed your exclusion form. No limitations on that. That's what's changed. You can exclude. You can't do any of that other stuff anymore. That's what this policy is meant to address. It stops that practice, or at least addresses it, I should say.
Perfect. So that should answer Heidi's question that you still need to have a seller's exclusion on file, or if asked for, you should present it. So
yeah, clearly it's a significant decision and you need that in writing from your sellers, because it's a contractual issue, right? What if it's only to be 30 days? Well, clearly you want that instruction in writing. Or if it's the entire period of the MLS. I mean, the RLA has boxes in there, dealing with mandatory submission and off MLS marketing, or off MLS sales. It's a very long section in the RLA, so it's certainly an important topic and one you would want to have an agreement in writing with your sellers. Any other questions on registered?
There's one that came in from Donna. It says, please confirm if a signed AD is required from clients to show a property that is registered.
I am confirming that, because no public marketing is allowed while in registered. If you have a client who has signed that AD form with your broker in the last year, that client is not the public. That's the clear distinctions. Who is the public and what is marketing? The public is anyone who is not a client who signed the AD form in the last year, or another agent in your office under the same broker license. So you can show it to those folks who have that AD form signed. So can the other agents in your office. So there is a reasonable amount of leeway to do an in-office sale without marketing to the public.
Very good. Okay, that finishes up the questions.
Okay, well, keep them coming because I know as you continue to listen, we'll start to turn. So I'll hit this again. Registered replaces the CRMLS exclusion process. The registered status will be coming along shortly. We're anticipating June 1st, so it won't be perfectly timed with the coming soon, but registered is not really necessarily a vital part of the clear cooperation policy. So it's a system tool that'll be available to you in a couple of weeks after May 4th. Also, you see this big red circle slash. We're probably going to retire the CRMLS exclusion form. You guys may have been using this if you ever need to exclude a property. It's a form we developed that allowed for DOM not to accrue if you weren't marketing, right? Because that seemed reasonable to us. The CELM didn't allow for that. But with these changes and with the fact that CAR is putting out a new form, a new CELM that we've looked at, and it looks to be comprehensive and sufficient for all purposes, it'll make our form redundant. So we're probably just going to pull our form out within a week or two. I want to stop and deal with a couple of these questions, Daniel, before I move on to these outside concepts. So hit me with what you got here.
All right, so let's see here. Larry was wondering, can you register a property for 60 days and then change it to coming soon when you're ready for the 21 days?
That is the prototypical scenario for which you would use, a registered coming soon combo, right? So if you know it's going to take way longer than 21 days, you don't want to burn up your coming soon by, with a property that has no possibility to be ready for marketing. Put it in registered for as long as you need. There's no time limitation for registered. You can have it in there as long as you want, just like you could with an exclusion form, right? So as long as your sellers give you that instruction, take the time, get it ready, put it in the coming soon when you know that 21 days is going to be most effective.
Perfect. And then Brian was wondering, can flippers place signs in the front yard of a renovation property if they're also a broker?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you just get to behave as a broker under the rules that apply to a broker, right? So if you are a flipper, you have to abide by these rules also if you're a broker. So if you're a flipper and you're taking that 90 days to rehab the property, then you're going to probably put it into register. But don't put a sign out because that's public marketing. So you just get to live your life just like a broker under these rules.
Okay. And then let me see, let me digest Wendy's here real quick. So, so then wouldn't the same criteria regarding the showings be registered? Wait, so, sorry. So wouldn't the criteria regarding the showing on the registered be the same as the coming soon?
No, it's not the same because under a coming soon situation, no showings can take place at all.
I think
by the listing broker.
Yeah, a little bit extending on that. So meaning that they must have an AD in place with the agents within the brokerage?
No.
Okay, not the same.
There is no showings allowed even with an AD, because the rationale, again, is that this property is not ready to go 100% to market. So you can't show it, right? Otherwise, it's active. Put it into active, right? So there's got to be these limitations. And unauthorized showing in a coming soon status is going to be a violation. Registered is allowed to those people with the AD form because that's truly an off MLS, office exclusives type scenario. So that's the big difference. All right, so let's move on a little bit. So we have a couple of new things that are not necessarily related to clear cooperation. As you see on the slide, we've got some new measurements for a listing in the MLS. These are counts, days counts that won't be going out anywhere. They'll just be available to you in your agent full reports. Not going out to syndication or anything like that. So we're adding something called days not active, DNA, and that's essentially just what it sounds like. Anytime that the property has not been in an active under contract or pending status. So if that property's been in hold or withdrawn for a while, you're going to have a number that adds that up for you. Days on market is the same. Simply any days active or under contract for the listing in the MLS. New one, days in pending, just what it sounds like. Anytime that listing is spent in active under contract or pending, you're going to see a specific count on that. And that can be helpful if you're trying to figure out how long deals are taking to close, or if perhaps there's a problem with the listing. For instance, let's say it has DOM, days on market, of 5, right? So it got a lot of activity very quickly and went into contract, but it's been in pending for 90 days. Maybe you want to know more about that. So that's a helpful measure. And then we're adding days listed, which is just the big number. Every day that that listing is spent in the MLS, regardless of status. Here's the actual rules that are being changed. 9.3 is the rule that will address the no showings in coming soon or hold. And it's just what I explained. No one can show it. 10.1 is where we explain our statuses. We've added the coming soon status. This is a snippet from it. Be aware that if you're going to advertise and market while something's in coming soon, your advertising and marketing should declare it as being coming soon. So if you have a sign out front, put a coming soon rider on top, and try to get you need to have the date that it's going active as well. Hold is the same as it's always been. If your seller needs to pull it off the market a little bit, that's fine. Hold behaves a lot like coming soon in that you can still market, but you can't show it. And hold is subject to its usual time limitations as well. Okay, so what is the consequence of breaking any of these rules? Well, there you see it. It is a sliding scale. For any of these clear cooperation rules, the citation amount will be 1% of the list price, no less than 500, no more than 2,500. Why the sliding scale? Well, it needs to be equitable. We have a lot of area in our footprint, and not all areas have the same median list price. So to have a one size fits all citation amount would be sort of inequitable for this particular set of rule violations. 2,500 is the cap. That may seem high. It's certainly higher than our normal fines, but it's a very significant rule change at a very significant industry issue. So the determination was made that this should potentially cost more than what is absorbable as just the cost of doing business, right? So if you're selling high-end luxury listings and you want to try and circumvent these rules and you're not concerned because you can just pay some small fine, the hope is that this will dissuade that. Be aware that this is on the low side. Our survey of the other MLSs in the country, most of the time the fines are 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 and up. There are several MLSs who use a repeat offender violation system where it goes to 5,000 to 10,000 to 15,000. There's even one MLS who on the third violation you are terminated from the MLS, which means you're out of business. So we're not taking that harsher approach. We want to see how this works out. If the practitioners conduct themselves in a way that requires a little bit more of an aggressive approach, in other words, if everybody's just running around and doing whatever they want, the board of directors can certainly take a second look at this and maybe move these fines around. So we'll see what happens with you guys out there. And these violations will be subject to a warning. So for instance, if you've got a sign out in front of a listing and it's not in the MLS, well, obviously you've triggered the clear cooperation rule or you're subject to it. We'll wait 1 business day, see if you get it into the system. And if you don't, we'll send you a warning, says, look, we'll give you 1 more business day. And then if it's not in, then a citation will issue. So that is the mechanics of that. Reporting on these things is just like any off MLS activity is now. Obviously, guys, it's not in the MLS, so you can't just click the blue link at the bottom of the listing. This is something that's observed out there in the marketplace. And just like now, we get those reports from you who see these things sent to our compliance inbox with photos or whatever evidence you have, after which or upon which we'll take a look at it. A couple of quick questions. Janice, you want to break down Janice's question for me, Daniel?
Yeah, sure. So she just wanted to go back to that registered status and just wanted some clarification. So if registered, the agents of the same brokerage as listing agent, if they had an AD, they can show the property?
That's right. That's right. That's all within that circle of not the public. Guy has a personal question for me. Okay. I'll give you my email, Guy. How about that? It's jeff@crmls.org. And I will take that up with you. All right, so what's the timeline here? Well, as I said at the beginning, NAR told us to get this out there by May 1st, and that's what's happening. We've got everything changed and ready to go. May 1st is a Friday. We normally don't start big implementations like this on a Friday, so we're going to wait till Monday the 4th to implement everything. So on Monday the 4th, coming soon is there for you. Okay, and on Monday the 4th, if you're publicly marketing a listing, you're going to need to deal with that, right? And it's not in the MLS. Registered status is about a month behind. It's a mechanics issue with our developers and our platform builders. It'll be here very shortly. Until that's happening, just use your exclusion process as you always have. It works now. It'll work until registered's ready. And when registered's here, you can switch over to that quite easily. If you need more resources, we've built a pretty robust page on our main site. It's got a lot of material in there, FAQs, videos, other webinars that I've done and Ed has done. It's got some knowledge-based articles, and it's got a dedicated email box there. So if you have a question specifically on Clear Cooperation, you can enter it there and it'll come directly to a special email box that we're pushing the answers out as quickly as we can. We've gotten a lot of questions, so give us a second if we don't get to it right away. So that's it for my material. I appreciate you guys coming up with these really good questions. I hope that I've put enough material out there for you that it's helpful and not too confusing. Just remember, if you are going to publicly market a property now, you have to put it in the MLS within 1 business day. That's the big change. If you had an excluded property and we're going down that road, marketing to the public, and we're able to keep it out of the MLS, that's the big business workflow change. So a lot of moving parts here, but really just keep in mind those main concepts. Wendy, is there a copy of this PowerPoint on the website? I believe there is, if you want to check in there. If not, send me an email and I'll have marketing send it to you. I believe this PowerPoint has been made available to some degree to our AORs as well.
To extend on that, I'll go ahead and reach out to Association Resources to get a copy of it.
Yeah, check with Devin and see what's up with that. I know she's handling that. So I'm here for, as long as you guys name me, if you have any other questions.
If anybody has any questions, they can go ahead and raise their hand, and then I'll call on you to unmute yourself and ask Jeff the question.
Yeah, and in terms of office trainings, we do a lot of broker presentations on this. So we're not just doing this presentation at AORs. We will respond if your broker office wants to have a personal training on this. Either I or Megan or Amy or Ed will set it up with you guys. So just send us, there's another email you can use. It's compliancetraining@crmls.org, compliance training. And if you just so happen to send your request to Clear Cooperation, we'll get it anyway. But we'll respond to your emails and someone will reach out to you about scheduling.
So there was a question from George about the fine. You said there was a 1% or 500 or up to 2,500 max. Does the same apply to the residential lease listings?
No, you might have missed it at the beginning, George. These Clear Cooperation rules do not apply to any listing or any property types other than residential land, or 1 to 4 unit properties for sale. These rules do not apply to leases. They do not apply to commercial, multi-unit, mixed use, anything like that.
Not seeing any other questions come in. I'm not seeing anyone having their hand raised in the participants field. So.
Okay. Well, again, thanks for your time. Good on you for joining in and trying to learn about this. I hope you're well and safe, and I hope that you get to go outside and practice your business as usual very soon. All right. Take care, everybody. I'll shut down now. Good luck.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. Really appreciate your time and giving this presentation. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. I'm going to stop my screen share now.